That's what I'm recognizing. Than they were this morning. If everybody could please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, to start off this evening, we have a foreign exchange student presentation. Okay. I'm sorry, we're in your way. No.
Slideshow right over it. Left.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All right, now we got that out of the way. Let's begin. So my name is Lily Davis, and I'm a senior here at Whitney Point High School. And last year, I was blessed with the opportunity to go on exchange with Rotary to the capital of Sweden, Stockholm. And I'm just sort of here to like tell you guys a little bit about it and like why I feel we should promote it a little bit more here in Whitney Point, as well as just in general, because I feel that exchange doesn't get talked about enough outside of like an unattainable goal that a lot of people are unable to reach. So just as like a little like pre-note here, oh, that already went, but this is like 4 to 5 separate presentations all sort of like wrapped into one. So I will definitely be glossing over a couple of things, and I won't tackle some stuff as well as I probably could. So I will have an option for questions at the end if anybody wants something clarified or is curious. So we're just going to start off with my experience with Rotary in general. But like before we really get into the nitty-gritty of it, I just like why Rotary, like why exchange in general. So for me, my story is that I've always wanted to go abroad. I've always just like ever since I saw like the streets of like Paris and London on the screen as a kid, I was like, I want to go there. I want to do something there. Well, like what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go changed as I got older. Just the want to go to a foreign country still remained. And the whole reason I sort of like started really jumping on like the opportunity to go on exchange is because I really wanted to go to college abroad. And especially since I'm going to be studying architecture, going abroad is something that like really helps with that, just getting a different perspective on like cultures and different like ways of building, because it's a whole other thing. I could talk for hours about it. So I'm just gonna stop myself right there. And Rotary is a very accessible method to doing that, and it's very caring, might I say, because everybody who is like within the organization is a volunteer, so they want to be there and they want to do these things. So it's unlike some other exchange programs where the host parents are paid, so they don't care as much because they're getting a paycheck for taking them to there, and they may not treat them as well because of this paycheck. So I really feel that Rotary sort of like negates that worry that a lot of parents can have when sending their kids abroad, that their host families just won't like them. But anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about the process because it is a little bit of a pain, I will be honest. So first, you have to get in contact with a member of Rotary because you have to be invited. So And then they will send you this form. You have to fill it out, get a bunch of papers signed, and then you will be invited to attend interviews, which are group, family, and individual. And while I know that the parents will usually get pulled out for like a completely separate interview themselves, it's like they'll ask you like a bunch of questions to make sure that you are a viable candidate to be a representative of your community and America as a whole. And then you'll get to select your countries. Well, each Rotary Club has a different selection of countries. I know that the CNY Rotary has options of over, I think, 24 countries from like all over. So like Central Europe, Asia. I think you can go to Africa as well. Of course, South America. Those are some of the more popular countries. And then you will hopefully get accepted. You get a call. It's a whole thing. It's great. You get very excited. And then you will go to a bunch of meetings and orientation. Just make sure you sort of like have the rundown of what's going to happen, how things are going to work. And then you need to fill out insurance and apply for your student visa. This is the most tedious and painful process, I will be honest, because it's just a lot of waiting and making sure you get the right information from the right people. And then you get to book your flight, and Rotary usually does it through a travel agency, so you don't really have to do much. You just have to send the agent the date and time that works best for you, and they'll do everything from there. And then you get to arrive in your host country, and you are going to be very jet lagged and delirious, but still, it's a great first day. So yeah, that image is just basically an accurate representation of what it feels like. So our district is District 7180. It is commonly referred to as CNY Rotary, as I mentioned previously, and in the little map there, you can just sort of like see all the counties that it encompasses. So it is just a whole lot, and it's, oh my gosh, I remember I was trying to help another exchange student like with stuff, and I was like, oh, we're in the same Rotary district, do you want to meet up? It's just like, I live in Middletown. I'm like, ooh, that's not gonna work. So yeah. And it consists of over 111 clubs with over 2,800 members. And the current district governor, from when I made this, was Robert Volk. It has probably changed by now, but because Rotary like cycle through presidents and governors and people in position of power like on a yearly basis, so there's always like fresh ideas and like a fresh face within Rotary. And my host club was the Nacka Rotary Club, and it is within the Stockholm and Uppsala Rotary District. And as you can see on the little map, you can't really see it because I didn't highlight it, but Nacka is like all the way down in sort of like the corner from like central Stockholm. So yeah, it is a little bit of a distance, like with public transport. With a car, it's not that bad, but obviously I didn't have a car, so it's an hour on the train. Yippee. Let's see. So now we're gonna get a little bit into host families, and this is an image of me with my personal favorite host family. I would go through all the relations, but it's a little much, but just know that they are very nice people and I love them dearly. So usually within Rotary, you have 2 to 3 host families. Because the whole thing with Rotary is that you are on a cultural exchange. You are learning about a new culture and a new language. You are not trying to excel in academics per se, but you are trying to excel in becoming a better person. And like going through host families really helps with that. And my first host family right here, they were like native Swedes. They had like grown up in the area and sort of like were very Swedish in a sense. Whereas my second host family, my host mom was a Slovakian immigrant, and her husband's family came in from Finland and Germany. So they had a different perspective on Swedish culture and a different take. And it was honestly a really enlightening experience to go from a very Swedish family to that of like an immigrant family with a little bit of a more alternative perspective on traditional Swedish customs and cultures. And while I did have a third host family, they weren't the best. But Rotary was very quick to like jump in and just sort of like get me out of that situation, so that way I could be comfortable and happy with my time abroad, because that is what is most important along with your learning. Because you can't learn if you aren't comfortable and happy, to be quite frank. So anyway, so school and my just sort of time making friends. So that is an actual image of the school that I went to. It was a refurbished factory building, so it was a little bit industrial on the inside. And I had to go up many flights of stairs every day. It was 7. I will still complain about that to the day I die. So basically, Kulturama is an art school. It's the #1 aesthetic school in all of Scandinavia, which is honestly really cool. It was such an honor to get to go there. So they have like a lot of, so since it's an art school, they mainly focus on like art programs like dance, art, music, photography, theater, etc. But they do also have some special like science and art programs. So it's sort of like a hybrid. And I was in that specific class. I was nature art. So I took art classes along with a bunch of science and math classes, and it was a pain. Because let me tell you, learning biology in Swedish is not for the faint of heart. But honestly, being in a school like this just really helped me like make friends because a lot of the kids here were more alternative and more open, and they just really wanted to like hear about my country, hear about where I came from, because they had only ever seen American movies. And while some people had some like family, they were mainly on the West Coast, because I remember one of my classmates talked about going to like San Fran often to visit their uncle. And also just the school itself was so inviting and so helpful. They really did make an effort to make me feel like one of them, and like I really belonged. And that honestly just, it really helps with the whole transitioning process, because that can be difficult. I'm not going to be light about that. It's a whole thing. But to get into a little bit of Swedish culture, I'm going to talk about fika, which I love fika. I did go to fika quite regularly while I was in Sweden, both with my friends and by myself. But so fika is something that's often translated as coffee break, but it means more than that. It's a cultural thing. It's spending time with the people you care about, just sort of unwinding, relaxing, just talking with the people you care about and sharing a moment. And honestly, it's some of the best things that you can do. It's just going to get a fika and unwinding after a long day. And now we're going to talk a little about Lucia, which is celebrated on the winter solstice, the darkest day of the year, in honor of Saint Lucia, who delivered light to Catholics hiding in Roman catacombs. It's celebrated widely in Scandinavian countries, but I know that some Southern American countries and Italy are also huge celebrators of this. While it's not like a day off, it's just sort of like they will hold a ceremony within most schools, and churches will also have like a lot of like ceremonies. And here's a video of the ceremony that my school held. Oh, oh. Sorry. By the way, she is really wearing real candles on her head. So honestly, applaud her bravery. Okay. And right there is just a little image of the crown that that Lucia will traditionally wear. And Midsummer, I'm sure most of you have heard about this. It is not like the movie, I promise. I'm still alive and I haven't been indoctrinated into a cult, I swear. So it's the celebration of the summer solstice, and typically you just sort of like get together with a bunch of family and friends. You usually be like in a big field, sometimes filled with like flower crowns and stuff. And you'll dance around in English it's the maypole, but in Swedish it is the midsommarstång. And you usually do it while singing traditional Thurster like small grodorna, which really translates to the small frogs. And this aspect, I think, is where the culty sort of feel comes from, because you're just like holding hands with people. You're going around, smoke rolled enough. So like it can freak people out if you're not used to it. But overall, it is it's a holiday of superstitions, like what my host mom described it as, because like there's this one tradition that young girls will typically go pick 7 flowers and then put them under their pillow overnight. They will dream of their true love, something like that. So I know like a bunch of different countries will celebrate it different ways. A lot of I think they like fires, and the Icelandic people, they have Jólasmessa, and they will roll around completely naked in like dewy grass to sort of like youth something. And cows can talk that day. I don't know. It's very interesting. Honestly, I feel you put your own research into it, because it is honestly such an interesting topic. I'm going to talk a little bit about differences between holidays. So first off, I have Halloween. Halloween is relatively new, and it's only about 30 years old, and people don't really go as like excessive as we tend to do here in the US, because like when you drive around like wealthier neighborhoods, and every house has these blow up dragons with like big lights and they're moving. Sweden doesn't really have that. Some people may put like a pumpkin outside their door, and that's about the extent that they'll go. Well, Gröna Lund, which is one of Sweden's biggest amusement parks, does typically go a little bit more ham on it. And that is an actual image of Gröna Lund right there. I did go during Halloween, and it was very nice. It really felt like I was at home, like just walking around, seeing all the decorations. It was so much fun. And then we're gonna have Christmas. They typically do like the present opening and family time stuff on Christmas Eve, whereas we do that on Christmas Day. It's just sort of like flip-flops, like where they really celebrate. And also one interesting thing about like the Christmas breakfast is that it'll be like rice pudding with like almonds in it. And if you eat an almond, you have to say a rhyme about Christmas. So everybody is just sitting very tense, thinking about the rhyme that they're going to get in the event that they get an almond, or they just crunch it very slowly, so that way nobody notices Christmas wants to do that. And next we have Easter, and in that image right there, you can see some young girls dressed up as Easter witches. I can't say I'm exactly privy to the reason why they have Easter wishes, but it's very cute to just see like the little girls like running around in like their cute little dresses and just like having freckles painted on their faces. It's overall very sweet. And Easter's, for the most part, very similar. Like my parents celebrated it. They came over, we celebrated it together, and tend to individually paint eggs instead of like dip dyeing them. And that is like the biggest difference that I at least noticed when I was abroad. But I know that families celebrate it differently all over the place. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about some architecture. And while I could go into the extreme nitty-gritty of it, I'm just going to give some cool fun facts on like churches and castles that I saw while I was there. So first we have the Uppsala domkyrka. It was built in 1435 and is located in Uppsala. And it has a lifelike statue of the Virgin Mary with an actual human skull in it. And one of my best friends thought that she was a real person the first time she went, and she didn't know that it was a statue until our tour guide told us that it was a statue. It's honestly freaky. Like if you go there, you're like, oh, very, very devout person. She is not real. And they also have like a couple of like noble skeletons in there. Like a whole bunch of stories following this. That's a whole presentation in and of itself. So I'm going to move on now. And here is the Kungliga kyrkan. Directly translated, it is the royal church. It was built in the mid-1700s, and I actually went there for a New Year's Eve concert. Is anybody here familiar with Greta Thunberg or Greta Thunberg? Yeah, I saw her mom sing opera live for New Year's Eve. It was honestly such an interest, so cool. Love that experience. And it is located in Gamla stan, or the Old Town. So it's just history upon history upon history. And then this is the Tyska kyrkan. It is also in Gamla stan. And it's dedicated to Saint Gertrude, and it was originally made as a guild for German merchants, but eventually over the years it just sort of got turned into a place of holy worship. And the inside is absolutely gorgeous. The stained glass that I have the image over there has to be one of my favorite stained glass windows that I have seen in Sweden. Then we have Gripsholms, Homes, which if you notice the lion, I'm sure some of you may have seen that wall on the internet at some point, and there's actually a very interesting story behind it. So it belonged to King Frederick I, who had a pet lion. And when his pet lion died, he was very sad and asked for it to be taxidermied. But the taxidermist did not know what a lion looked like, and so it ended up becoming that. Very sad times indeed. I feel bad for this lion. And it also has one of Europe's most well-preserved 1700s theaters. So that's super cool. I went in there. I don't have a photo over here. Not enough room so you can see everything, but still very cool. Then we have Drottningholm Slott, and this is where the Swedish royal family actually lives still to this day. And bit of a train ride away, about an hour, depending on where you are. But this was one of my favorites. I sent mom so many photos of it the day I went there. It has a very pretty garden. That's one of the main draws of Drottningholm, is that like you get to just walk around the garden. It's open to the public. They have some closed off sections, but overall you just get to see the fruits of the landscape later. And there's also a Chinese style castle. It's one of the queens actually very into China and Chinese architecture. And she's like, well, I just want a little China in my backyard. And I'm the queen, so I can do that. So she did. And they do have separate tours for that. It's very pretty. I wish I could have gone there, but alas, there wasn't enough time. And also those tours will happen in the middle of the summer. Anyway, tack så jättemycket för att ni lyssnade. Do you guys have any questions or anything that you'd like me to expand upon? How long were you there? I was there for the whole academic year.
You said you had multiple exchange families. So how did that work with you going to the school? Did they all have to be in the same area, or did you just have one or
You tend to be all in the same area. It's sort of like you have a group of 2 to 3 other exchange students, and you all share the same host families because you're all going to schools within the same area.
I don't know how to word it, but do you know were you learning the language prior, or do you have to learn it before either?
I was learning the language prior, and I had been learning Norwegian for a whole year beforehand. So I did have a little bit of a jump start, but the thing is, there is also a whole different to actually speak with native speakers rather than just teaching yourself and speaking with people who also speak the language as their second. So I did definitely have when I went to Sweden, I was able to learn it much more in depth.
I know you went the whole academic year, and I know Rotary is real academic based. So do they offer shorter programs half a year or during the summer?
They do summer programs, yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, we do have a need for a brief executive session to hear discussion on
Specific personnel.
specific personnel. May I have a motion to go into executive session at 6:22?
So moved.
Thank you, Chris. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Aubrey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? We will be back as quickly as we can. We wait for Tom. We should be back at the second. Yeah.
Didn't I just send that to you like 30 seconds? Thank you.
Good idea.
Okay, no more giggling over there. Okay, you'll see that we had two pieces of correspondence, one from the Mary Wilcox Library and one from the Brum Tioga BOCES board candidates. That brings us to policy discussion.
Okay, the first, well, actually, we have the first reading, we have one policy that is to be removed, or we're going to suggest that it's removed, and that is policy 765. But as it goes, when we tend to look at sections policy manual, we start to think, oh, geez, it's like all of these, I actually did these in 2009. All the special ed policies were reviewed then, and there's been lots of changes to regulation and to state ed requirements. So we're going to be in the next couple of meetings going through a number of them. And the goal would be to simplify language, to not necessarily have policy that just restates what regulation is, because those things change over time and we're required to do that as a public school anyway. And to sort of just streamline that whole process to future-proof us as we've been doing as much as possible moving forward. But the policy that we're going to look at for first reading, this is sort of an example of this, but regulation has just changed where students with disabilities can stay in school through the year that they turn 22, which is now just a requirement. Our policy said through the year that they turn 21. The suggestion would, and then it also just says some things about child fine, which are also requirements. And it actually has language in here for a procedure that we do not do anymore. So we're going to suggest that we not have this policy and that we just follow regulation as we're supposed to. I'm going to ask that you, over the next couple of meetings, do like chunks of like 3 at a time, and we just kind of get through them, make sure that we don't have anything that is one against regulation or a practice that we have, and then again, try to get rid of things that we don't necessarily have to have. Okay.
And just making more of the language that says following the laws that we.
Right. Just, you know, law and regulation.
Right.
And when you do that, you pretty
Then
much
you're
are
covered for whatever.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so that brings us to policy for first reading, which is the before mentioned policy, and it 7650 for removal. They have a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Chris. And a second. Thank you, Benny. Does anybody have any questions on it?
So you can see the specific language in this policy is something that we actually did do once upon a time. And that was to conduct a door-to-door census throughout the entire district. And we would pay people to knock on doors.
That's me.
Yeah. And so now what we do is we make sure that the hospitals and the healthcare agencies and all, you know, everybody know how to register for school, make sure that we're checking with them so that we can meet the obligations of child find.
Any questions from the board? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any policies for second reading? Number 8271, internet safety, internet content filtering. May I have a motion?
I'll bring Tom.
Okay,
Just to follow up, last meeting we had our public hearing. Then we did put our required input section on the website for anyone that wanted to make a comment and comments. Again, this policy was really to be in compliance with being able to be eligible to receive E-rate funds, which again is something that the district does get every in 5-year intervals. So again, at this time, we'd like to move forward with the policy.
And everything that's outlined in this policy are our practices. So it's not, it's just have to state it clearly in policy.
The referred to policies, have we already looked at them, Zach,
The referred to.
at the bottom? We already reviewed them already too.
I believe so. It's been a little while.
The student acceptable use policy, we did both staff and student, we just updated those two. Student use, I mean, this actually should not be student use of personal technology. We changed them, that's a different name.
Yeah, it's got a different name, right? So we might need to do some edits there.
Yeah, so that policy needs to be corrected. And then also let's double check those numbers, the policy numbers.
Thank you, Chris.
So do Tom and Aubrey, would you be comfortable amending the motion with the changes we just discussed?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, that brings us to our first opportunity for comments from the public. Each speaker will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes and the entire public comment period to a maximum of 30 minutes. This may be waived by a majority vote of the board. The board requests that each speaker stand, state their name, residency, and topic of discussion. By law, the board will not permit any public statements regarding individual students or employees. And please be advised that while the board takes public comment very seriously, we are not allowed to comment or respond during the meeting, as this is our opportunity to hear from our stakeholders. Items brought to the attention of the board will be taken under consideration for future responses or action, or the proper staff member will get back to you at the appropriate time. There is also a second opportunity towards the end of the meeting, just in case you don't want to speak now, but may come up with something later. That being said, is there anybody who would like to speak this?
I'm Amy Lynch. I do live in Whitney Point. For residency, to keep my address. This is Sue Stearns. Thank you very much for giving us a moment to speak to you. Sue's one of the board members at Mary Wilcox Memorial Library, and I'm the president of the Board of Trustees. And as you've seen in our correspondence, we've submitted our meeting minutes where the Mary Wilcox Memorial Library Board of Trustees voted to override the tax cap and have passed a resolution to have an increase in library tax placed on May's ballot. In addition, we have a petition to be placed on the ballot with sufficient signatures. The library has not requested an increase since 2020. At that time, the budget was created with the intention that we would go out again after 3 years. However, we stretched our budget for an additional 3 years. With the increases across the board, the library has reached a point where we can no longer sustain our current level of services. In order to do so would require major cuts that would be detrimental to the community. We have also had lots of questions on how we were able to afford to build an addition if our funding is insufficient. The addition was built using New York State Library construction grants. And we were eligible for a 90-10 match, meaning we got 90% grant money. The 10% that the library put forward consisted of monies that were designated years ago for the addition. The library was also able to obtain multiple private grants that required no matching funds. Therefore, the addition was not built using library tax income. So the increase we are seeking is for our current operating expenses. Thank you very much for your. Do you have the petitions?
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak at this time? Okay, commendations.
Okay,
I'm sorry?
We need to do anything with that. We don't need to do any vote on them yet, right? No,
For what? For this?
no, for the board down at BOCES. We don't vote on them yet. They're just asking us to vote for them, right?
Right,
Thanks.
okay.
okay. All right, we'd like to commend the following high school art students whose art is on display at 2026 high schools, at the 2026 art show at Johnson Watson Cultural Center in Endicott. Emma Davies, Mia Davis, Brooke Feathers, Mackenzie Harvey, Ava Oliver, Alyssa Whittall, and Allison Zembeck. Coach Danvers and the varsity girls cheerleading team for earning the IAC League Class C championship. The following high school students and BOCES CTE students for their representation at the Skills USA New York State Region 2 competition at Marsville. Samuel Baker, a senior, first place in diesel equipment technology. Cadence Benefield, senior, and her partner from Vestal High School, first place in TV video production. Mercedes Tonkin, junior, second place in nail care. Coach Black, assistant coach Ballard, and the following athletes from the girls wrestling team for their showing in the Section 4 Girls Freestyle Wrestling Championship on Friday, February 13th. Colleen Hildebrandt, fourth place. Julie Smith, sixth place. Zoe Taft, strong showing, beating the second seed wrestler. Coach Black again, assistant coach Ballard, and the following athletes from the boys wrestling team for their showing in the Section 4 Wrestling Championship on Saturday, February 14th. Kyle Fritz, fourth place, and Elijah Baker, fifth place. Mrs. Stanley, Miss Driscoll, Miss Hill, Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Busanel, and the students, the many students for a wonderful science fair, and the participants in grades 6 to 8 presented on March 4th, and the participants in grades 4 and 5 presented on March 5th. Is there a link to the coverage? Which was really cool.
Hey, I'm Petey, aka Peter Pan. Turns out adulthood's kinda awesome. With AAA, I get grown-up perks with zero grown-up stress. Insurance, travel, roadside assistance. With AAA, it pays to be a member.
Back at home, students at Tiafioga Riverside Academy held a special science fair today, showcasing off months of hard work. Fox 40's Katie Lynn has a story.
The Tiafioga Riverside Academy gym was lined with rows of 4th and 5th graders and their science projects today. It was the scene of the school's annual science fair where middle and elementary school students present their science and STEM projects to students and families.
We have two events at our school. We have a science fair for 6th through 8th graders, which was last night. And then our 4th and 5th graders present during the school day. And they also have their science fair tonight for the families and community.
Participation in the fair is voluntary, with students free to choose any topic that interested them.
It ranges anywhere from, their favorite animal. They might focus on their favorite animal and do a research-based project. Or we have several students this year that really grabbed onto that scientific method, and they actually collected data. And we're really looking for them to graduate into that type of a project where they collect data.
One student, 4th grader Bryson Pata, researched mousetrap cars, small DIY vehicles powered by the snap of a standard mousetrap.
They're like cars where the mousetrap, the spring powers the axle or the string to untwine, which when it's untwining, it moves the axle to make the wheel spin.
Pata said his love of science inspired him to take part.
I think science is really fun, and I love doing it. I like creating, and I have an imagined mind.
Stanley said she's always impressed by the work her students bring to the fair each year.
I've been here for 25 years, so every year you think you're going to keep seeing the same things over and over again. And every year I am just so shocked and really proud of their displays and the ideas that they come up with, the questions that they ask and research.
The school's science activities aren't over yet. Tiafioga Riverside Academy will host Ology Night, this year's version of its annual Family Science Night on Wednesday, March 18th. Reporting in Whitney Point, Katie Lynn, Fox 40 News.
So I think all of you here know that the science fair has been a long tradition. In fact, I sent Andrea a picture of because after talking to the kids at the science fair, I found this picture of my daughter in the science fair, and just the fact that it's such a celebration of learning, and each of those kids stands there and they're so proud of themselves, and it's just the coolest thing. And it's really taken on like a whole new life now that we have Andrea working in the science and in that STEM lab. And I can't tell you how many kids said, I love science, or I want to, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a biologist. I want to be it's just, it was such a great thing. And even with the split up with 4, 5, and 1 day, and 6 through 8, it was packed both times. Yeah,
Cards coming out for
yeah, really cool. Okay, so Coach Bill McNeil for his induction to the Section 4 Hall of Fame class of 2026. The induction ceremony will be held on April 25th at the Holiday Inn downtown Binghamton. Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Pullins, staff, volunteers, and the talented students in the high school drama club for their great performance, and somebody sitting right here was part of that, for Bye Bye Birdie. Coach Hayes and the varsity indoor track team athletes for the following, showing at the Section 4 Indoor Track and Field State Qualifier Championship. Qualifying for the state meet division 2 girls 4x200 meter relay was Addison Feathers, Ava Oliver, and Madeline Zaire. And Peyton Martin. 4th place, girls 4x400 meter relay team, Brooke Feathers, Ava Oliver, Madeline Zaire, and Peyton Martin. 5th place, Peyton Martin, 300 meters, Ava Oliver, 55 meters, and Dylan Whitney, 300 meters. Whitney Point SAAC members Peyton Martin, John Morris, Eleanor Jordan for presenting at the Section 4 Student Athlete Advisory Committee Conference on February 26th. Coach Hayes and the following varsity indoor track athletes for earning 6th place at the New York State Indoor Track and Field 2026 State Championships in the 4x200 meter relay. Addison Feathers, Ava Oliver, Madeline Zaire, Peyton Martin, and Brooke Feathers, and Emily Brunick. We had a big send off for them, even though the weather wasn't really very cooperative that day. Copernic Observatory and Science Center has not happened yet. Tomorrow night, TRA's Ology Family Science Night on March 18th. They will be hosting the Earthquake Engineering Activity, and Lockheed Martin for sponsoring the Earthquake Engineering Activity at the TRA Ology Family Science Night, which will be tomorrow, and I can't wait. Yeah.
That brings us to our student board member report.
Okay, I wasn't actually supposed to be here today, so I don't have like a big report planned. So I'm like kind of winging it. Last meeting I reported on our CEA visits, which went well. And as of now, a few of us have gone to the TRA. I haven't gone yet, but I'm going to be scheduled to go. So next meeting, you should have more data about our visits to the TRA. And then as some of you may know, we've been trying to bring Eagle Time activities back. So we decided that on once a month, on a Thursday, I think it was, that we would have an Eagle Time activity, and we had our first one last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. And I've heard really positive results so far. Everybody was really happy that they had the opportunity to do an activity. All the all the clubs were nice. They weren't. Last time we had Eagle Time activities, some of the clubs were very random, like Barbie Club. We weren't actually like doing anything. And I think we really set a more of a guideline for them. So a lot of the clubs were actually, there was more of a limited amount. So kids would actually like be doing the activities, not just hanging out in a classroom. Lots of people signed up. If they didn't, they would be sent to a study hall, and I didn't hear like really anything about that. So I think everybody actually did sign up for an activity. And I heard like after the Eagle Time was done, I heard lots of students express joy about it, or say how they had fun at their clubs and how they were excited to do it next month. Some teachers were like allowed to set limits for their students, so it wouldn't get too overwhelming in their classroom, which I think worked a lot good. Because there wasn't too many students in each classroom, so the teachers weren't getting overwhelmed. And there was still like rooms where people could focus on their academics if they didn't necessarily want to do an activity. Okay, we're like still working out all the kinks on what's gonna happen for the activities. But, they've been going well so far.
So do you want to, Jordan, just like share with the board why everybody decided that they felt like that was important in our school?
Yeah.
To bring that back.
In our school, like lots of kids are involved in clubs, but they want to do more stuff or they don't have like time after school to go to these clubs. So they were kind of upset that they never had time to do fun activities after school or with school. So the Equal Time activity was supposed to be a way to give like students a break and increase their school spirit, as well as giving them a fun opportunity that they couldn't have if they can't go to clubs or if they, can't stay after school or do fun things for some reason.
Excellent. Very nice.
Yes.
Okay, old business, there is none. First up is next is budget presentation.
Probably won't be quite as fun as the exchange student program or already on, but I will do my best, I promise. So today, back up, last month, we talked about state aid and the governor's budget. This presentation is really going to be about school taxes, the tax levy limit, and really take a look at that in detail and kind of give an update on where we're at with trying to balance budget with expenses and revenue sources. So comparative data, again, how I like to kind of go into this is, you can't just have the focal or the lens of Whitney Point school taxes. They're too much, I like to kind of go into it and compare to our region, what is too much? What does Whitney Point look like within our county system, within our BOCES? And again, what do we get out of the school taxes and how does that really make up the school budget? So this next slide, I think does a pretty good narrative. There's a lot of data on here. I try to simplify it. I guess I would ask for you to look at the slide. The most important thing to take away from my perspective is if you have $100,000 of value in your school district, what are you paying school taxes on that? I think most people can kind of relate to that example. That's how we see it in newsletters throughout the region. So for my $100,000 property, what is my school tax bill? And that's what this slide tries to tell you. And it's sorted from highest of Susquehanna Valley down to lowest of Tioga. And what I like to try to say is clearly we want to be closer to the bottom of this. We like to see that range of what districts are we near, and then again, to kind of further explain it, like why would there be such a gap? So again, taking that view of $100,000 property value, if you lived in Whitney Point, your school tax bill would be $1,467. For that same $100,000 property, again, we're saying the same value of property in any of these districts, that would be your school tax bill. So for Whitney Point, you live here, your tax bill is $1,400. If you go to Susquehanna Valley, that same tax bill would be around $2,249. And so again, what goes into these numbers is really the value of the property within the school district boundary, right? So we take all the property value and we divide it by the school tax levy, and that's where you get these figures, right? And there could be a lot of reasons why some of these districts in the higher range are there. They have more value, they could have more business, they could have way more taxpayers paying into this pool or way less. And so that's kind of how you have to look at it. But again, when I'm trying to explain school taxes, I like to show this slide in that, to put in perspective, Whitney Point school tax rate is relatively low for our region. And that's where we like to try to keep it. Another important thing to try to understand when you go through the budget cycle with budgets and taxes is how much of the school budget does the tax levy represent? And there's a variety of revenue sources that we go into detail that make up the school budget. And the school tax levy is obviously a big factor, but it ranges widely within our region itself. So again, on this slide, same districts in our BOCES region, you can kind of see that if you take the school taxes that are collected by each one of these districts, that's the percentage that makes up their overall school budget. Right? So for Whitney Point, the amount of taxes we collect in here in our district represents 18.66% of our school budget. Where you can see a district like Vestal, again, their school taxes are representing over 50% of their school budget. And again, a lot of factors go into that reason, property values, businesses, things like that. But also, if you're looking at this and the local share, school taxes are coming up with 18%. Where's the rest of the revenue come from that funds our budget, right? And for Whitney Point, obviously it's state aid. That's important to know. And just remember when we go through this process where, for a variety of reasons of why foundation aid may be so important to Whitney Point, maybe a little less important to a district like Vestal, right? Their budget, they have way more say in increasing their school tax levy to whatever percentage they think they need to balance their budget. Where even if we wanted to go out with a much higher figure, it's still going to be a much smaller portion of our budget. So again, just an interesting slide. So I went through those slides really about the school taxes and the current Whitney Point budget. This goes into the board budget goals. A lot of consideration goes into the budget. We try to break it down to these three things: maintain the focus on education, build a sustainable budget, and again, for tonight's topic, develop a reasonable tax levy within the applicable regulations. So back in 2011, school taxes were growing exponentially. There was a lot of pressure at the state to do something about it. You saw these wild fluctuations in tax rates of 4%, 11%. And so what the state tried to do at that point was to make this formula for districts in New York State can only go out for so much each year on their school taxes unless they had a supermajority, which is a 60% approval rating, which is, not common. This formula is very complex. I'm just showing you again how it's calculated at the state. We'll go into it for how it actually plays out for Whitney Point School District. Again, our current tax levy is at $9,077,000. That's how much we collect our local share currently for the school budget. We have these factors and these numbers that are given to us by the New York State Department of Taxation. The New York State budget gives us another one. But when we run through the formula, what it's doing is it's telling us basically within the current law of the school taxes in the formula, what can we go out with and still be within the rules and compliance. And so when you plug in our numbers, the bottom there is 2.57%. And that's not very surprising, right? We know that 2% is, the formula. That's just one factor of it. It's the number given to us by the budget, the allowable levy growth factor. But, just everyone's own personal budget. Everyone knows inflation has gone up. It's the same thing. It allows kind of for a little extra money to come into the school budget through the formula, right? So our number for this current tax year that we could go out for without a supermajority vote is 2.57%. And what does that bring in? That brings in an extra $233,000 to the school. again, comparisons, it's a theme. I do like to look at where everyone else's tax levy limit falls. Again, I like to make sure we are, steady with the pack. I don't want to be too low, something's going on, too high, something's going on. And as you can see, the 2.57% is right within the range of our region. And in fact, when you break it down, 11 of the 15 districts are within that 2 to 3% range for a tax levy increase for this year. This slide, I think it's important to try to understand this slide. We came up with it during COVID. For the folks that remember, it was a time where it was such a crazy school financial time where it looked like we were going to have drastic major cuts, and then all of a sudden this crazy federal stimulus came through, and we were flush with additional tax dollars. And going through the budget, we as a board realized we could go out and keep the levy zero, which was fantastic for our community at the time. Everyone was going through a lot, which is great. We were able to build the budget. That's okay for a short-term approach, but it's nothing you ever want to really get into long-term. And that goes into the other budget goal of building a sustainable budget. And what does that mean? So I built this slide to try to show you what happens like for that year that you don't go out for an increase, and how that amount can snowball over time. So in this example, assume again, I like nice round numbers for this calculation, but our tax levy is $9 million. 1% gives us 90,000. Or simplicity, say we could have went out for a 2% increase this past year. We could have brought in $180,000. We chose not to, so that's $0 additional dollars on our tax levy base. Say, you know what, next year, same thing. For a variety of reasons, we decided to do it 2 years in a row. Okay? No tax increase. Well, what does that mean after 5 years? And so what I do is kind of show the next years 3, 4, and 5. The district does go out for their 2%, 2%, 2%. And then what you can see is after this 5-year look back, what our tax levy base, what our tax base would be if we went out every year versus our tax base if we went out 3 years with an increase and 2 years with none. And over those 5 years, what happens is our tax base is actually $385,000 less annual, right? So it's not just a 1-year thing where you technically don't bring in additional dollars. It's really how you're building a sustainable base for future years. This slide's very, very busy. Stacy, do you mind putting the little camera somewhere over in prior years somewhere? Yeah. So this is really a nice historical slide with a lot of numbers on it. I'm aware it's very bright. But it shows the story, I think, of the Whitney Point budget in the last 6 to 7 years there. No jokes, please. And so the far right is our current budget in progress. And it's going to look interesting. And there's always a story, right? You don't want to be the low, you don't want to be the high comparison. Well, if I'm looking at this and I see the budget for this next year looks like it's going to go down. That's weird. Like, why is it doing that, right? And this has to do with the capital project and how that comes into our budget schedule, how it falls off of our budget schedule. And you can see a couple years ago in 24-25, this is when we first borrowed for the project, our budget actually went up 12.4%. That's again, I try to separate the amount of portion to the debt, the capital project debt, that 8%. So I kind of take that out of it. But what happens is that comes on, budget goes up, and now it's falling off this year. And what that means is we have debt payments, but we also get state aid to make those debt payments. So they really are a revenue and an expense driver. So they fluctuate depending on our debt schedules, could sometimes annually, right? So again, we are projecting about 2.2 million less in debt payments next year, but that would also mean 2.2 million less in state aid revenue, building aid to cover that. So just it's important to explain that of why it looks like the budget's flat, because we know our expenses are going up, right? We have salaries, we got benefits we talked about last meeting. Our Our health insurance is going up 20%. Our health insurance is a big number. You know, anytime you have a big number and you're talking about 20%, it's a big increase. So again, those numbers are built into this current expense total of that 48,310,000. But then, you know, I like to look at foundation aid. You know, we were talking about how the tax levy, you know, as a percentage of budget's around the 18-19% of our overall budget. We rely on foundation aid, and you know, there's a variety of sources of state aid, right? Allows them a reimbursement base. Foundation aid is really the state's money given to us for general operational needs that we have the say in where they get spent, right? And that's over 50% of our budget, which is great. You know, we'll take every dollar of that. We're appreciative of it. But how we do all these great things is typically when we get increases in that number, and that's how we can expand. Right now at the state budget, which again, all the talk, there's really not a lot of talk of there being additional dollars at the state level to go to school budgets right now. We're looking at a 1.6% increase. Again, it's great, right? We'll take it. But as you can see over the years, that's low in the last historical view of our foundation aid increases. So just running out the rest of this, we have our other state aid, which again is the reimbursement basis. That's the debt service, that's the transportation, that's the BOCES. Other revenue, it's a small number, but you know, we get some Medicaid reimbursement comes in through there. We run out our bus garage for our maintenance contract. Anything that doesn't quite fit into those other categories, you know, we bill some districts for students that may be their responsibility to come to Whitney Point, et cetera. And then appropriate fund balance. These next two, appropriate fund balance and budget use reserves, that's really the district savings accounts, right? That's how much the district is putting into the budget to help balance the expenses, right? And you can kind of see over time, it's been relatively stable around that 500,000. There's a little, blip in that 24-25. We did have a one-time expense that was again announced for the CEA playground project, which we're happy to do at that time. But keeping that again, $750,000 is what we're looking at putting in the appropriated school reserves, balance the budget. Currently, there is no planned use of reserves. I can almost assure you next time we meet in April, that number will be in there. Because I think that's probably how we're going to balance this budget. But going through the columns here, the tax levy, you kind of see that over time, going back to 1920. The increase, the percentage increase, right? 2.3, 2.16, 1.2. There's that zero I talked about. There's 1.03, 295, 205. And then again with that levy or that state formula calculated 2.56 in there. And so what does this mean? We take our revenue, we take our expenses. Right now at this point, again, not all expenses are known. We have a $735,000 gap. Again, it's not minor, but it could be way worse. And that number is way worse than some of our neighboring districts. Again, if I had to balance it today, I'm going to recommend we use budget use reserves. We're going to take one of our reserve accounts for retirement and put that in there, basically saying we're going to pay our retirement bill next year with money in our reserved savings account. So that is an option, but again, we don't have both these expenses finalized yet, and that number is a big number of the budget. It's around 20%, 8 million or so. So that is a big number we're working on. It is hard because right now, March, we're trying to sign up for slots for BOCES programs in September. I mean, there is no, evaluations done yet. It's strictly projections. We want to give you guys the best number and data possible. That's not done yet, right? We'll have that figured out by mid-April. That's kind of what we're working on a daily basis until we get there. Pie chart. Here's like pie charts. This is kind of shows you I just went through, but in pie chart form. Again, with the tax levy increase of the 2.57, that would result in our local tax share being about 19.27%. We have our little other tiny slices of the pie, other revenue, and reserves, savings, fund balance at 3. But again, that chunk of pie, right? State aid, that's what funds the school budget for the most part. And again, that foundation aid is a large chunk of that. And then disclaimers, right? January, the governor puts out their initial budget. You know, that's what politics are. They start negotiating that. They're still negotiating it. It hasn't been finalized. You could always normally rely on it being finalized by April 1st. That's out the window. You know, will there be a final budget by the time we meet in April? I hope so. There's no guarantees. I don't think it's going to change much from where it currently was, but anything's possible. You know, we didn't even really talk about, which was much more of an issue last year, loss of federal funding. There was a big push to eliminate the Department of Education. You know, all things considered right now, our federal grants are there, but there's still that kind of lingering, you know, could that be on the chopping block next week? Possibly. It's a hard time to kind of project about a budget when things are very fluid. And, you know, depending on what happens worldwide, that could be something that gets targeted. As always, we're being conservative in our revenue expense projections at this time for items still being developed. Again, I mentioned one key cost driver is still BOCES. So I'd feel way more confident telling where we're at once we get that kind of finalized. But that's what we'll be doing in a couple weeks. What's next? You know, we'll go back through everything, make sure we dotted our I's, crossed our T's, look for additional efficiencies. Go through that BOCES request, see if there's any services we could potentially reduce. Wait for the governor's budget, see what happens. Again, hopefully no news from the federal level. And then we'll continue to meet with our internal teams and the BOCES budget team. They're a great resource and really, you know, they help us a lot in this process and report if you can things like that. Is there any questions?
Easy, as usual. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the consent agenda vote. May I have a motion? Is that you, Molly?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? New business, tenure appointment. Recommendation for Amanda Dunham, elementary teacher, effective March 14th, 2026. May I have a motion?
Second.
I didn't hear who the first one was. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Well deserving.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Retirement resignation. Jeffrey Diedrich, librarian, effective June 30th, 2026. May I have a motion? Thank you, Benny. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Molly. Any questions or comments?
Thank him for his years here. How many years? 25?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Dawn Fox, school psychologist, effective June 30th, 2026. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions or comments?
Thank her also.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Like the letter, this is my definite retirement.
Damn, I saying, do you mean it?
Wish them the best.
Yep. Appointment, Cindy Clark, bus driver, effective March 12th, 2026. May I have a motion? Thank you, Benny. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions or comments?
Yay, yay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, our next one is a donation from the baseball group from the Eagles Nest Booster Club for the Whitney Point High School baseball program. The donation is valued at $2,984.64. May I have a motion?
Hello.
Thank you, Chris. And a second? Thank you, Benny. Questions or comments?
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Resolution committing to the purchase of technology equipment for the instructional technology service from the Brim-Tioga BOCES. Whereas the instructional technology services budget A557 requires additional technology equipment to the currently available equipment. Whereas the Whitney Point Central School District wishes to spread the cost over 5 years with a multiple year installment purchase. The Brim-Tioga BOCES is hereby authorized to expend annually on behalf of the Whitney Point Central School District in conjunction with the Instructional Technology Service funds to acquire the following equipment. You have the list in front of you, but it is 2 Babu Labs Carbon 3D printers, 130 Dell Chromebook 11s, 20 Dell 24-inch monitors, 12 Dell 12-inch monitors. They're different model numbers, so they do a little bit different. 28 Dell Pro 14s. The total purchase cost is $99,500. The estimated financing cost, $13,529.65 for a total cost of $113,029.65. It is an estimated payment schedule of $22,605.93. The schedule above is based on the estimated interest rate of 6.5%. The annual payment amount may fluctuate depending on the final rate assigned 3 to 7 days prior to the funding date. The interest rate will not exceed 7%, and the payment amount will not exceed $22,814.39. May I have a motion? Thank you, Molly. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions or comments?
Just to give you guys a little bit more follow-up. This is an annual resolution that we do. It really, from the district's end, is beneficial for our ultimate replacement schedule of IT assets in the district. So what we budget for, again, is roughly $22,000 a year in our IT budget through BOCES. And then every 5 years, we've been doing this for so long, a payment comes off the books. So we're really putting a payment back on the books. So the budget wise, it stays the same, but we're really rotating our equipment every 5 years.
Which is kind of important nowadays because technology changes so fast that.
Yeah, first time we've ever had the 3D printer done there, so that's kind of exciting.
Make a bus.
Yeah.
But not an electric bus, please.
So what's the cost on the 3D printer?
Individually, they're about $2,300 a piece.
But I know that the in the TRA, they're going all the time. The couple they have there, they're going all the time.
And that was the thing so these are for the high school, and really we're getting for one area, but that was the recommendation of our IT guy, was that you really want to get 2, because if you're printing a long job, it could take all week to print one thing. So at least now you kind of have 2 kind of thing.
Yeah. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Resolution of the Board of Education of the Whitney Point Central School District, Brim, Shenango, Cortland, and Tioga Counties, New York, the district, authorizing the submission of one proposition to be voted upon by the qualified voters of said district at the annual meeting thereof to be held on May 19th, 2026. Be it resolved by this Board of Education of the Whitney Point Central School District, Rome, Shenango, Cortland, and Tioga Counties, New York, as follows. Section 1, at the annual meeting of the qualified voters of the Whitney Point Central School District, Rome, Shenango, Cortland, and Tioga Counties, State of New York, the district, to be held on May 19th, 2026, the following proposition shall be submitted to be voted upon in addition to the proposition seeking approval of the budget for the district's 26-27 fiscal year. Proposition number 2, acquisition of buses. Resolved that the Board of Education, the Board of the Whitney Point Central School District, is hereby authorized and directed to purchase 2 new 71-passenger diesel buses at a cost not to exceed $416,500 and 2 new 42-passenger diesel wheelchair buses at a cost not to exceed $424,701, and to expend therefore not to exceed the estimated total cost of $841,201, including incidental expenses in connection therein, and that such sum or so much thereof as may be necessary shall be raised by the levy of a tax upon the taxable property of said school district and collected in annual installments as provided by Section 416 of the Education Law. And in anticipation of such tax, shall the Board of Education be authorized to issue bonds or other obligations of the school district in the aggregate principal amount of up to $841,201. Section 2, the district clerk is hereby authorized and directed to include within the notice of said annual meeting required to be published and posted by the district a statement to the effect that the proposition set forth in Section 1 of this resolution will be voted upon at such annual meeting, which notice shall contain the full text of such proposition. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately. May I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
And no replacement.
Yep, same as with the technology.
Absolutely.
You have to, buses start getting older, they cost more to keep up. So if you keep on the schedule, things don't fall apart. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Section 1, at the annual meeting of the qualified voters of the Whitney Point Central School District, Rome, Shenango, Cortland, and Tioga Counties, State of New York, the district, to be held on May 19th, 2026. The following proposition shall be submitted to be voted upon in addition to the proposition seeking approval of the budget for the district's 26-27 fiscal year. Proposition number 3, library tax. Resolved that the Board of Education, the Board of the Whitney Point Central School District, is hereby authorized and directed to levy and collect an additional $29,000 in annual taxes year after year, separate and apart from the annual school district budget, thereby authorizing a total annual tax in the amount of $191,000, of which $126,000 shall be paid to the Mary Wilcox Memorial Library for the support and maintenance of the library, and $65,000 will be paid to the Lyle Free Library for the support and maintenance of the library, with this appropriated amount to be the annual appropriation until thereafter modified by a future vote of the electors of the Whitney Point Central School District. Section 2, district clerk is hereby authorized and directed to include within the notice of said annual meeting required to be published and posted by the district a statement to the effect that the proposition set forth in Section 1 of this resolution will be voted upon at such annual meeting, which notice shall contain the full text of such proposition. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately. May I have a motion? Thank you, Penny. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michelle. I will be abstaining from this vote.
I have a question. This is a really odd question, just came into my head, and maybe Zach or Joanne knows it. These come up to us to vote on, to put them on the ballot, right? What if a board voted not to put these on the ballot?
Legally has to be brought forth, if they do the procedures outlined in, education law. This is how the libraries can secure a funding source by, it's kind of like how you guys approved the tax levy warrant.
Yeah.
We're gonna collect it anyway. you can vote no for zoning collective, and like an after the fact kind of thing. But they follow the protocol, which allows them to be placed on the ballot. You can vote no, but they would still be legally allowed to do it.
That's weird. I just thought of that. I just thought like,
Good question.
why do we even have this here? I mean, it just only dawned on me. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Which had a better
I
answer.
need to go to another one of those law conferences again.
Well, I guess if whatever, not this, but if the board all voted no, then that would show the public that maybe it wasn't something that was, even though by law it had to be, it might have been something that, whatever, again, I'm not saying this,
Right.
but it might show what the consensus of what, if that is something that, and then when the community votes on it, they have some input on what we did. Even though legally, so I guess that's one thing that.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that answer.
Yeah, and I just think, just like Tom just said, even short of what he's saying, just articulating that question is sort of restating the fact that it is a very separate thing.
Mhm.
You know, that it's not the board deciding to do this.
Right. Something we have to do.
Right.
And the board doesn't have any real voice in it, really too much.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? I am abstaining. A resolution providing for the holding of the public hearing and annual school district meeting and budget vote in and for the Whitney Point Central School District Sorry?
This is the long one.
Yeah, I know. Whitney Point Central School District from Shenango, Cortland, and Tioga Counties, New York, and providing for other matters in connection therewith. Be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Whitney Point Central School District from Shenango, Cortland, and Tioga Counties, New York, as follows. Section 1, a public hearing of the qualified voters of the Whitney Point Central School District, counties of Broome, Shenango, Cortland, and Tioga, New York, the school district, shall be held on Tuesday, May 5th, 2026 at the high school auditorium, 10 Kybel Road in Whitney Point, New York at 6 p.m. for presentation of the proposed budget for the following school year. The budget will be available for review on May 6, 2026 and thereafter at the school district office. Section 2, the annual school district meeting and budget vote in and for the shall be held May 19th, 2026 at the high school cafeteria, 10 Kybel Road in Whitney Point, New York at 1:00 p.m. and the polls shall be kept open for voting by voting machines between the hours of 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. prevailing time on said date, Propositions hereinafter set forth in the notice of said annual school district meeting and budget vote are described in Exhibit A attached hereto and hereby incorporated herein by reference. Section 3, voting at said annual school district meeting and budget vote shall be conducted by the use of voting machines. Section 4, the clerk of said school district is hereby authorized and directed to cause a notice of annual school district meeting and budget vote in substantially the form attached hereto as Exhibit A to be published in a newspaper having a general circulation in said school district, such publication to be made so that such notice shall appear in said newspaper each 4 times within the 7 weeks next preceding such district meeting, and the first publication to be at least 45 days, but preferably not more than 49 days before said meeting, and to give such other notice as may be deemed desirable. Section 5, the school district clerk is hereby authorized to amend the notice of annual school district meeting and budget vote from the time to time as, in his or her discretion, such amendment may be required or desirable. Section 6, to the extent required by law, the Board of Education shall appoint election personnel to conduct said annual meeting pursuant to a separate resolution of this Board of Education. Section 7, this resolution shall take effect immediately. Notice of annual school district meeting and budget vote, Whitney Point Central School District, Central School District, Broome, Shenango, Cortland, and Tioga Counties, New York. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Education of the Whitney Point Central School District, Broome, Shenango, Cortland, and Tioga Counties, State of New York, the school district, will hold a public hearing on the budget of the qualified voters of the school district at the high school library 10 Kybel Road, Whitney Point, New York, on Tuesday, May 5th, 2026 at 6 p.m. for the purpose of presenting the budget for the 2026 to 2027 school year. Notice is further given that a copy of the statement of the amount of money which will be required for school district purposes during the 2026 to 2027 school year, the budget, exclusive of public monies, as well as a copy of any propositions to be presented at said annual school district meeting and budget vote, may be obtained by any resident of the school district during business hours between 7:45 a.m. and 3:45 p.m. at any school district building and the school district office during the 14 days before the annual school district meeting and budget vote, except Saturday, Sunday, or holidays. The statement shall also be available on the school district's website and at all public libraries located within the school district. A real property tax exemption report prepared in accordance with Section 495 of the Real Property Tax Law will be annexed to any tentative preliminary budget as well as the final adopted budget of which it will form a part, and shall be posted on school district bulletin boards maintained for public notices as well as on the school district's websites. Notice is further given that the annual school district meeting and budget vote of the qualified voters of the Whitney Point Central School District, Central School District, counties of Broome, Shenango, Cortland, and Tioga, New York, will be held on Tuesday, May 19th, 2026 at the high school cafeteria, 10 Kybel Road, Whitney Point, New York, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. prevailing time, when the polls will be open for the purpose of voting by voting machine upon the following propositions. Proposition number 1, shall the following resolution be adopted, to wit, resolve that the proposed budget of the expenditures of the Whitney Point Central School District for the 2026-2027 fiscal year in the amount to be determined, and for the purposes shown in the statement of estimated expenditures adopted by the Board of Education of the school district, be and the same hereby is approved, and the amount thereof shall be raised by a levy of tax upon the taxable property of the school district, after first deducting the monies available from New York State aid and other sources as provided by law. Proposition 2, shall the following resolution be adopted, to wit, resolve that the Board of Education, the Board of the Whitney Point Central School District, is hereby authorized and directed to purchase two new 71 passenger diesel buses at a cost not to exceed $416,500 and 2 new 42 passenger diesel wheelchair buses at a cost not to exceed $424,701, and to expend therefore not to exceed the estimated total cost of $841,201, including incidental expenses in connection therewith, and that such sum or so much thereof as may be necessary shall be raised by the levy of a tax upon the taxable property of said school district and collected in annual installments as provided by Section 416 of the Education Law. In anticipation of such tax, shall the Board of Education be authorized to issue bonds or other obligations of the school district in the aggregate principal amount of up to $841,201. Proposition number 3, shall the following resolution be adopted, to wit, resolve that the Board of Education, the Board of the Whitney Point Central School District, is hereby authorized to levy and collect an additional $29,000 in annual taxes year after year, separate and apart from the annual school district budget, thereby authorizing a total annual tax in the amount of $191,000, of which $126,000 shall be paid to the Mary Wilcox Memorial Library for the support and maintenance of the library, and $65,000 will be paid for the Lyle Free Library for the support and maintenance of the library, with this appropriated amount to be the annual appropriation until thereafter modified by a future vote of the electors of the Whitney Point Central School District. Notice is also given that petitions nominating candidates for the office of member of the Board of Education must be filed with the school district clerk between the hours of 7:45 a.m. and 3:45 p.m., not later than April 20th, 2026 at the district office, High School Building, 10 Kybel Road, Whitney Point, New York, 13862. Candidates must be a citizen of the United States, 18 years of age, able to read and write, a legal resident of the school district 1 year prior to the election, not an employee of the Whitney Point Central School District, and remain a qualified school district voter throughout the term of office. The following vacancies are to be filled. a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2029, presently held by Aubrey Noraki. A 3-year term ending June 30th, 2029, presently held by Thomas Tasberg. A 3-year term ending June 30th, 2029, presently held by Molly Willis. Each petition must be directed to the school district clerk, be signed by at least 25 qualified voters, shall state the residence of each signer, shall state the name and residence of each candidate and whether such candidates are nominated for full terms or unexpired portions of such terms. The candidates receiving the largest number of votes shall be declared elected in accordance with Education Law, Section 2018-B. No person shall be nominated by petition for more than one specific office. Notice is further given that absentee ballots will be available for this annual school district meeting and budget vote. Applications for absentee ballots for the annual school district meeting and budget vote may be obtained at the office of the school district clerk, 10 Kugel Road, Whitney Point, New York. The application must be received by the district clerk at least 7 days prior to the election if the ballot is to be mailed to the voter, or the day before the election if the ballot will be picked up personally by the voter. Absentee ballots must be received by the office of the school district by no later than 5 p.m. prevailing time on the day of the annual school district meeting and budget vote, May 19th, 2026. A list of all persons to whom absentee ballots shall have been issued will be available for inspection by qualified voters of the school district at the school district clerk's office during regular business hours, 7:45 a.m. to 3:45 p.m. prevailing time until the day of the annual school district meeting and budget vote. And such list will also be posted at the polling place on the day of the annual school district meeting and budget vote, May 19th, 2026. Any qualified voter in the polling place may object to the voting of the ballot upon appropriate grounds for making her challenge and the reason thereof known to the inspector of election before the close of the polls. Notice is also given that military voters who are not currently registered may apply to register as qualified voters of the school district. Military voters may request an application to register as a qualified voter from the district clerk. Military voter registration application forms must be received in the office of the district clerk no later than 5 p.m. on May 7th, 2025. In order for a military voter to be issued a military ballot, the school district must have received in the office of the school district clerk a valid ballot application no later than 5 p.m. on April 24th, 2026. A military voter may designate a preference to receive a military voter registration, military ballot application, or military ballot by mail, facsimile transmission, or electronic mail in their request for such registration, ballot application, or ballot. Such designation shall remain in effect until revoked or changed by the military voter. Ballots for military voters shall be mailed or otherwise distributed no later than April 24th, 2026, dated March 17th, 2026. May I have a motion? Thank you, Tom. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Aubrey.
Can we tweak one thing on that?
Yes.
For the last paragraph of the military ballot, they need to be received by district clerk no later than 5 p.m. It should say May 6th, 2026.
So in the middle of the paragraph?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you have to read the whole thing again.
That's not true.
No,
If it changes every time.
Tom and Aubrey, do you both approve of that change?
I have a quick question. Where does this writing come from?
Our bond counsel, that's the Cahill and Wink bond attorney.
Okay, so maybe next year before we do this again, the his and hers could be changed to theirs.
There's no.
One.
There's a couple.
There's one in section 5 for sure. There's another one that's down in notices further given the absentee ballots.
Oh,
And then,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanna change it right now.
no,
It's approved
I'm
today.
just saying,
Yeah.
for next year.
yeah, for next year, we can look at that. And the other question I have is newspapers are like almost obsolete. Do we know what other districts or people in rural that don't have newspapers and have lost their newspapers are doing instead of that piece? So I would like to see what we see other places. Not today, not now, but if we could figure out what's going on there.
The law is written as newspaper.
The what?
The law says it has to be posted in a newspaper.
What happens when there's no newspaper for people to get?
You
That's
have
what
to-
I'm.
You have to
kinda
publish it in the next, the closest one.
Well,
Until they change the law. It's a
Wow.
lobbying list. There we go.
Yeah,
I think we need, I think this is something we need to bring up in both.
I mean, the news, it goes in the digital newspaper as well, so
Yeah.
the press next time.
Okay, something I can look into myself then. Thank you.
Comment. Thank you again for reading all that. Very nice and very eloquent as usual. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? I have to abstain. Okay. Next one is to approve the establishment of the Mason Armango Memorial Scholarship Fund. They have a motion? Thank you, Chris. And a second? Thank you, Benny. Any questions or comments?
Would you like to say anything? Would you like to say anything?
I got a copy. I didn't know how this was gonna work. Oh, thank you.
It was a very eloquent letter and
I don't know what to do next. You'll be hearing from me. Thank you.
It'll be an honor and hopefully will help more people seek help when they need. Sorry for your loss, though.
anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Superintendent's update.
I think the only thing just to mention is along those lines, in remembrance of Mason, we just had training here for all our faculty on the conference day this past week. And then all students in the high school are going to receive training, just because one of the things that we became really aware of was we're not doing a good enough job in equipping kids to notice with their friends and then to know what to do. So that's going to be coming up very shortly.
I'm very
And
glad
that's
to
been a
hear that.
priority for Mason's family to do that, so we appreciate that.
I'm very glad to hear that the students will be included.
Yeah.
Is that it for superintendent's update? Okay, that brings us to our second opportunity for comments from the public. The same guidelines that I read earlier are still in effect for the second. Please don't make me read it again. Quickly losing my voice. So is there anybody who would like to speak at this time? Okay. Board of Education comments.
I'd like to say.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, no, I didn't.
Mine's for the board Val, so if nobody was gonna talk about
Okay.
it.
I just wanted to say that I won't be running again for a second term.
That makes me sad.
My sad emojis on my
I
thing.
mean, I've enjoyed it very much so, but just with time.
Thank you very much for doing what you've done now. Chris, I guess it's up to you.
So I have put the 4 goals that we talked about, they're all in super eval right now. We just need to really be conscious of our dates because we want to make sure we serve Joanne and so that she can get her evals done. Last year, I mean, they're all in the system. You can go in and do the evaluation. It's live even now. But last year we sort of had a due date that we would do it. So we included everybody before we lose Molly. And bring on new board members. So we need to just collectively decide a date that we all feel we can go in and get this done. so that we are appropriately getting everything done for Joanne and for the end of our board season.
And Michelle, if you need any help navigating Super Val,
Yeah, I'm sure.
just let one of us know.
Okay, thanks.
Only
Yeah.
a blast.
It's fun, I'm sure. That sounds exciting. Thank you.
So, last year we were sort of hitting the level, so I'm wondering if we could try to get it done by the middle of May, because we're gonna be getting into a lot of evaluations and looking for a new superintendent. Is middle of May sometime good for everybody?
We'll rely on you to keep, keep reminding us.
When's the board meeting and the vote in May again?
19.
Do we wanna have it done before that, because then if we have dead time.
We can go elsewhere
And have discussion
Review
that
it.
we have, I could get the collective done.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have it done. I would need to have it done at least 2 days before that, so that I would have enough time to put the evaluation together, so day 17.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm good. And yours is already alive too, Joanne.
Thank God.
Thank you.
If you could continue to do periodic reminders, I would greatly appreciate that.
I think I can set the system up to send reminders too.
Sometimes I'm very good at ignoring my calendar.
Sounds good. And I can send you all a copy of the 4 that we had. We deleted a couple and just made it more, we've already been meeting a few of them already, so we can, so it shouldn't be too drastically difficult.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay. We do have the need for an executive session this evening, to hear discussion on hiring of a specific employee.
Sorry.
What? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have something else?
He said the budget vote's the 5th of May.
No, the budget hearing is the 5th of
Oh,
May. The
hearing.
vote is the 19th.
Okay, we're good.
Strike that. Forget it.
It's 2 dates that are very confusing.
Yeah.
I had-
It's okay.
Okay.
So,
Right.
don't go ahead.
I just wanted to remind everyone that the next board meeting is on a Monday.
So when?
Yes, because that's the day that we have to legally vote for the BOCES representatives, which is why it's the oddball on a Monday. Okay.
Do you have a joint dinner? Feedback? For everybody?
I sent it back to her.
But there's just going.
Yeah, I think I've heard from everyone who is not going to the joint. If you are not going, just let me know if you haven't already. And then I can.
He's Stacy. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Is there anything else?
That was for the 26th.
Right?
Don't know about,
The
Oh,
joint
yeah.
dinner.
Oh, the drink dinner, yeah.
yes.
March, right?
Yes.
26.
Next week. Okay, so
I gave you a reminder for the annual business meeting as well, so, that RSVP is coming to.
If you haven't gone down for the annual business meeting in BOCES, it's worth going to. I usually go, I can't go. So my son-in-law's having open heart surgery, so I'll be with the family, so.
employed.
Important.
So following our executive session this evening, we will be immediately going back into open session and then closing our meeting. So people know that they don't need to hang around to wait for any other business to be conducted tonight. Yeah. For the students who are here for class, any one of us at this table can sign your form for you. No, I haven't yet. Could I have a motion for the executive session?
Second.
Everybody.
All in favor?
Aye.
Please make sure that your form is filled out. None of us will sign a blank form for you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna let you.
I don't have one. But you told me that we could just, you could just write our name on it and sign it.